Okay, hello, it's great to be here. I'm in a room in my house at the moment, not in a studio, but yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about me. So I'm a painter primarily, but I also use collage and drawing, sometimes sculpture, and that kind of informs my wider practice. I've got some collages and little kind of sketches and things behind me. Just kind of ways, I guess, that I'm kind of working with images and thinking about layering. And that's sort of one of the reasons why I chose to work with clay today for our workshop, because for me, it's sort of, I find it quite helpful for loosening me up. I can start to think about depth and layering with an image, and it's also just kind of a quite fun sort of accessible medium to work with at home. So today, yeah, we're going to make a spring themed clay tableau, something a little bit like, this is one I made that you can see. And I'm going to show you some different relief techniques. So you can see, hopefully, in this image, ways of kind of, you can think about creating depth, ways that we can add kind of pattern and texture to our tile. And this is we're going to be creating a hand-sized tile today using air-dry clay. Yeah, so materials and things that you will need. You probably have an idea or have some of the tools to hand already, but I'll just kind of refresh that a little bit. So sculpting tools, and you can get kind of plastic ones that are sort of knife-like. There are kind of serrated tools. We've got sort of things that are a bit like dibbers. Some of them are, sometimes they're kind of wooden, sometimes plastic, sometimes metal. I've got a mini rolling pin here. Scooper. Scoopers can be really good for relief, for taking out, sculpting into the clay. This one's quite large for a hand-sized tile, but it just gives you an idea of sort of some of the things that you might be able to get hold of. And I've also found a bulldog clip works quite well as well. So you can kind of pull the clay away using the bulldog clip. Also, we've got a rolling pin. I've got a large one here, but you can flatten down your clay using your hands if you'd rather. I've got loads of kind of odd household implements, which I've just gathered. And again, you can just sort of use what's around you, what's accessible. I've got a plastic fork. This is just a plastic scourer, but I thought the texture could be really great for mark making. Sort of looks a bit like water or something. I've got various sticks, and I've got kind of lichen, sort of materials I've gathered from outside. But this, yeah, the lichen has this gorgeous kind of organic brambly texture that I think could be really interesting using in the clay. And then just, yeah, I've sort of gathered sticks and have sort of different kind of shapes I might reference in my tile. I could trace around them. It just sort of is another thing to look at and kind of use to design it. What else do we need? Clay, obviously. So I'm using about 1/4 of a pack of air drying clay. And again, you can get tons of different kinds of air drying clay. You can also get clay that you bake in the oven. We'll just use this today. And what else? A decent kind of work surface. So somewhere that you can get messy, Oh, and a pencil and a paper. That's really handy because we can design our tile using that. And I think that's everything. Oh, little cup of water that we're going to use. We use the water as our glue, as our kind of slip. So I just have that to hand here. Okay, so I think that's it. So yeah, so the theme today shows kind of spring. Feels like we're kind of, well, maybe not today because it's been raining a bit, but we have sort of, it has felt really like we're kind of in the midst of spring now, which is such a kind of gorgeous, kind of magical time. And I was thinking about Hallan Tau, which is a Cornish festival that happens here where I currently am in West Cornwall. And it takes place in Helston, and it usually happens right about this time in the year, and it sort of celebrates the arrival of spring. And yeah, it's a really kind of wonderful spectacle. The whole of the town gets kind of bedecked in greenery and sort of lily of the valley, all of the shop fronts and the houses. And this is an old book from I think from the 70s, but hopefully you can see this is a shop front, and there are kind of parades and a kind of mystery play that takes place during the day, but you can see some of the greenery here. I can hold it up a little bit if the light is catching that. It looks very kind of genteel, this picture, but my experience hasn't always been like that. It can feel quite anarchic. And again, you can just, lots of kids dancing. But yeah, so that was sort of, I wanted to make a tile kind of inspired by this kind of custom. Of course, you can create a tableau that is, it doesn't have to be figurative. Like a tableau, actually, I should say, means like a scene, like a figurative scene, but I'm kind of using it in a fairly kind of loose way. So you could just think about some spring kind of motifs that you want to depict in your tile. It could be a view from a window, it could be sort of particular flowers or wildlife that you've noticed around this time of year. It doesn't have to be spring related at all. That's just kind of a framework. So the way I start is I'm usually I make a drawing, and that just helps to, I can kind of reference throughout the process. And so I want you to, grab a piece of paper and a pencil. And we're going to, and just take a moment to draw out our composition. And if you can make it to scale, so if you keep it kind of hand-sized, that would be fantastic, because then we're not sort of thinking about making things smaller or larger. But you again can really take your time with the design. I've already drawn this out because it was something I was thinking about the other day. And yeah, my tile is kind of wobbly, and yours doesn't have to be wobbly. That's just, I'm kind of interested in thinking about the outer shape in response to what's going on in the picture. But it could be a square, it could be circular, really it could be any shape whatsoever, as long as it's not, it's better to keep it kind of chunkier, just because of the working with clay, we don't want things to crack. So I've got my image here, and for me, I wanted to have a figure in a doorway, in a threshold, and she's having a smoke. And then around her is this huge sheaf of greenery. And we're just going to think a little bit about layers and about how we might want to create depth in our tile. And I'll just run through a few different techniques that you might want to try out. See what kind of works for you, what you like the feel of, and just feel free to kind of discard the rest. But it's a kind of process of trying it out and seeing how it works for you. So I've got my image, and I want this area behind my figure to be the background. I want that to be the furthest away. So I think, so that's going to be my kind of the background of my image. And then I'm going to think about, I want to bring the figure forward. So I think she might be sort of in the midground. And then I want the kind of star of the show, this sort of the big sheaf of greenery here to really pop out. So you can write on your paper, so you could, write foreground, or you could color code it if you wanted to, if you just want to remember which bits you might want to pop out. You can also just totally improvise, and I'm all about planning, but I know for some people you might just want to kind of start working with it. So when you've got your drawing, I'm just going to put that to side, and I've got my clay here. I've got 1/4 of I think it's a kilogram pack, but we're not going to use all of this. This will be more than enough. Just going to move that out of the way slightly. And I'm just rolling it in a ball. You can use the ball of your hands to push it down, or you can use a rolling pin. And I'm just rolling it out so that it definitely, the size of it is the same as my drawing. So I'm just kind of looking at the two. And I'm going to make it just under 1 centimetre thick. Try not to make it any more thin, because actually air dried clay is a really great medium to use, but it doesn't have the kind of permanence that, say, like pottery clay has. So you have to, I think, better to be a bit cautious. So I think that's about right. I've got my drawing. The next step is tracing the drawing onto my clay. Now I'm going to do it by eye, because I quite like it, sort of slight accidents that can happen. You could lay your drawing on top, and you could indent like this so that you can carefully see. You could use something like a pencil and make little marks and then copy that. But I'm just going to do it just by hand.
I'm sure everyone's getting really stuck in with their clay, but if anyone has a question for Flo, we'd absolutely love to hear it. And equally, we'd love to hear where you're joining us from today as well.
So I'm just, I'm doing mine kind of roughly. I would ordinarily take a little more care, but just so I can show you some different techniques, I'm just going to go for a little bit more quick than I would do ordinarily. But yes, I'm just using this one that's a little bit like a knife, just to mark out my image. You could use a pencil. But I find this just gives me an idea of where everything be. This address. And if things are going wrong, you're like, oh, I hate that line or whatever. just dip your finger in the water and then you can just smooth it out, like so. And you can always screw it up and start again. So when you're when you're happy with the composition, with the outside of the composition, you can just cut away. And again, you can really take your time with this. I won't cut it all away because I know some people might just kind of want to get on to sculpting with the clay, but it gives you an idea. And as you're working with air drying clay, smooth out these edges, like so. I'm just dipping my finger in the water and I'm just getting them nice and smooth, like so. Because as soon as it's out in the air, it's drying essentially. You just have to be a little bit wary of that. It won't dry out in, whilst we're working on it, but the edges will be first to get a little bit rough. So it's good to just smooth it out. So yeah, so you can cut around your edges, you can smooth them out. Again, you can, if they start getting rough again in the process, you can go back to that. That just gives you an idea. And then one of the techniques that I like to use is called bas relief, which is spelled B-A-S relief. And really it just translates as low relief. So you're creating superficial depth by scooping out clay to kind of scooping out negative space, I should say, to bring areas out. So you can see this is just a little example. I've taken out this area to bring the figure forward. And I've just got a couple of different, hopefully you can see that, but this one is just using my finger. So I scooped a little bit out and I've just literally smoothing it out using my finger. So they could be really kind of lovely chunky kind of demarcations. They don't have to be, you don't have to use kind of a fiddly tool. That one is using a sculpting tool. And then this one here, I've just exaggerated by cutting some little lines into it. Hopefully you can see that. So in order to do that, you're just using, again, knife tool. And you're cutting into the clay, but you're just going down a few millimeter. And I'm just pulling out the area that I want to, I want my background area. It's best again to be cautious, because if you go down too deep, you make a little hole, then it's more of a faff to rectify that. Whereas if you just go down carefully, then you can take a little bit more away, and you can go you can sort of get gradual, you can do it gradually. So I'm just gently pulling away the clay. So it's literally, that's it. And I'm using water, my finger, and I'm just smoothing it out. You can do that with your finger. You could use a different tool. So I've got this one, which is got a square end, not a square end. That's not what I mean. I just mean it's sort of shorter than the knife. So you can get a nice straight line. And I'm just smoothing it down.
Flo, do you have a favourite tool or technique that you like to use when you're using clay?
I really like this. I really like bas relief because I'm quite into creating kind of making things kind of sculptural, three-dimensional, but it's being subtle, like the subtlety of it, because you don't get incredible kind of dynamic depth with this relief, but you get a really beautiful, I don't know, just there's something really like nice and kind of subtle about it. Tool wise, I don't know. You know what? I quite like using my fingers. I mean, the tools are great, but sometimes it feels really nice just to kind of use your nail and to try and get marks like that. So I've just kind of smoothed out that area, and that's just taking out, it's kind of fairly flat. Again, you could even cut it and remove it a little bit like a contour. So instead of pulling away and it all being very straight, you can kind of, how do I describe this? You sort of go into it and you're pulling your tool at a bit of an angle. So I'm going deeper around my figure, and it's a lot more shallow as it hits the end of the line. I wonder if that made any sense, but hopefully it did. Like so. I wonder if you'll see that, but just, so it's just quite a cool like technique to kind of play around with, and you can use that with the whole of the tile. Find ways of creating depth, bringing elements out, and it sort of just begins to bring more kind of movement and energy to the tableau, I find. And then another thing that you can do is adding layers, and you can build it up by adding more clay on top. So I'm just rolling out some clay again, but this time not as thick as before, because we don't want it to be too chunky. And see in this tile, this area here is a lot higher than my figure in the center. And that's just because I'm looking at my drawing again, and what I want to do is bring out this whole area here. I want that to really kind of stand out. So I'm just going to copy this area into my clay. I'm just doing this by eye. Again, you can trace it. I think that might be a little bit too long, something like that. And then you can just cut it out.
And just a quick time check for everyone. We've got about 20 minutes of the workshop left. If you're not able to finish your tile within our workshop time, we'd really love if you'd just like to carry on, and we'd love to see your creations at the end as well. You can do that by uploading on our gallery on our website, hospital-rooms.com. Big hello to the wards that are joining us as well today. Hi to Endcliffe Ward in Sheffield, Maudsley Hospital and everyone on ES1 ward. And big hello to the ladies from Avocet Ward in Ipswich. We're really glad you're having fun working with clay.
Hi everyone, lovely to have you here. Such a great thing to do, this. Spend time with people in this way. So yeah, so there's just one little bit I've added, and you can just kind of build it up. You can add little bits to it. I mean, my tile is I don't know, it's fairly, you can make something, you know, more innovative and dynamic. Mine's fairly kind of, I think, a little bit safe, but you can just kind of play around with it. So I'm just cutting out more layers. This is just my greenery that I want to really kind of pop out. And you can see it's beginning to, it's looking quite chunky, isn't it? But I love these kind of slabs, but you could contour them so they're more kind of bulbous. And when you want to attach clay to the main part of your clay, you just turn it on its underside and score the back like so. That provides a key and it can really adhere. And then you're just dipping your finger in the water and making it nice and wet. And then you can just place it. And then you want to merge the two pieces of clay together. And you can use, I find, using a tool with a curved end, like that, is actually quite good for this. And this requires a little bit of practice because you might find that the layer on top is, you might be kind of, what's the word? Like taking too much of the sides. I'll show you what, hopefully you can see this. See, so what I'm doing is I'm just pulling it down into the clay underneath. Like that. And you can use your finger and just, it's better on a flat surface, but I'm just going to show you. You can smooth it out. And you can see there that I've kind of merged them together. So hopefully that won't fall off. And if you just do all of the sides all the way around and make sure whenever you attach more clay that you're properly kind of scoring it, a little bit of water so it can adhere really well. And yeah, so you can use this layering technique. And then we can think also about how to add, think about mark making, adding texture and pattern to our design. So I've got here some different kinds of marks that I've been playing around with. I hope that you can see some of those. But so over here, probably won't, I don't know if you can see that. This is the plastic scourer. I've got a plastic fork creating this kind of, this long lovely line here. These sharp straight lines, that's just the sculpting tools. This, you probably can't see on that bit, but this sort of, the lichen provides this really sort of like little kind of flecks and wispy kind of lines. It's really nice. And this is sort of pockmarked over here, but that's just using a stick that, where is it? I'm just using this and just kind of rolling it around, pushing it into the clay. So it just gives you an idea. So, I mean, you can really find what is, you know, what's accessible to you and just play around with it. So again, I think I might roll out a bit more. So, and a bit finer actually. Just using some of the lichen. So you can press directly into clay, like so. It makes a really sort of looks like a field of corn grass or something in the distance. And you can cut areas out. So let's just do a kind of sausage shape, like so. And I could, maybe I'll add that there, I don't know. You could also use the tools. So again, I really like the stripes. But the stripes actually I thought would work really well for kind of shadow in the way that you often see in kind of illustration and graphic novels. It's nice and dramatic. And of course, yeah, just if I wanted to attach that, I'm just scoring it. A bit of water.
Just a time check for everyone. We've got about 15 minutes of the workshop left. I just want to say a big hello to other units that have joined us today. So hello to Virginia Wolford at the Ladywell unit. Thank you so much for joining us. And a big hello to Rookery Gardens in Birmingham. I'm actually from Birmingham, so it's really lovely to have you with us today.
Oh, hi everyone. Thank you for joining.
Flo, you've actually provided everyone with really striking imagery that they can use as inspiration. So there was kind of a bird, there was frog spawn.
Yes.
And what's really exciting about that is kind of the infinite amount of ways that people are going to be able to translate that through mark making.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you can, I mean, that was just sort of a bit of a framework if you want to work with, yeah, I work in generally a fairly representational way, but you might look at, you know, particular images or see something that say like, yeah, some of the images, like the image of the goldfinch, for instance, and it might be the, I don't know, trying to describe the feathers, or perhaps it's just its environment. So you don't even have to, you know, necessarily think of trying to draw the goldfinch or whatever it is. You could just take an element from it and use that to kind of build up a tile. But yeah, I just find there's so much. I went for a little walk the other day, and we've got down here, we've got so many bluebells and wild garlic. So you get these amazing, just see all this sort of purple and white from afar. And it's just, yeah, really stunning, really beautiful. But yeah, so you can add to your tile, cut little bits away. And you can kind of, you know, figure out the placement as well. You might get into your tile and think, you know what, actually I want there to be some other element, like I don't know, whether it's a flower somewhere or a figure, and you might want to kind of cut something out and then stick that on top. I mean, it's sort of it's a really great medium, this clay, just for not being too precious, but kind of playing around with it, rolling bits out or squishing them into shapes and thinking, oh, what might that express? I don't know. I've used, like, I like these kind of little blobby sort of bulbous shapes, and I've used them for sort of, I sometimes think about a kind of a flower, like an abstracted flower, or it could be a sun. It could just be, I don't know, nothing, just a kind of a form. and I might want to stick that down there. And again, I'm just merging them.
What's really amazing about your workflow is that there's so much kind of narrative and storytelling within it. So you could really kind of build a whole tale around what this tableau is showing.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, you absolutely could do. That's the kind of fun that that's what I love about using something like, well, something that I do with the paintings as well, and drawing and collage, but the clay as well. It's sort of, I started off with just this, you know, it was a memory of seeing a figure in a doorway having a smoke, and during this festival, and it's just, I can kind of then start thinking about, oh, you know, who might this person be, and what kind of, I don't know, what kind of tone do I want it to be? Really kind of joyous? Do I want there to be some kind of, I don't know, something darker there? Or, and it's just, yeah, it's a way of, I find, of just kind of getting lost in, you're kind of creating a world and you can kind of get lost in it. And that feels so good right now, to, you know, to kind of lose yourself in something. Yeah, so what else? Let's have a look here. So some things, so these are some kind of blobby bits I've added. I dug, that's just using a pencil. I've just gone in here and then I'm kind of pulling it around. And then I've just used, I've got tiny little sticks that are really nice for making little holes, or actually I lay the stick down and push down into the skirt here to create these kind of folds, these stylized folds. But yeah, I mean, that's just like a little sausage that's sort of a garland. You can just play around with it. And then what else might you want to add? Oh, if you want to, I mean, I kind of like just making these tiles. Often it's more the kind of the process and kind of creating a narrative and thinking about depth and layer. But you might want to, sometimes I like giving them as gifts to people, especially as they're quite small. And if you package it really well, you can often get away with sending in the post. But so that you can just let it dry out as a tile, but you also can make some little holes in it using a pencil would be good. And make sure they're not too, if you want to hang it, that is, make sure they're not too close to the edge. So somewhere like there would be quite good. So I wanted to make a little hole. Oh, actually this, probably the stick is a bit better for doing this job.
Flo, we've had a really good question come through from Kirsten in the Lake District.
Oh,
and she wants to know, can you make a tableau in different stages over a period of days? I think, would the layers work? Would they stick together?
Yes, that's a great question. Thanks. You can do. The thing about air drying clay that I found is that always, when you've opened your bag of air drying clay, keep it in another plastic bag to stop it drying out. You can, for instance, if I wanted to leave this now and come back to it tomorrow, I would put it in a plastic bag and then pop it in the fridge. And that should be fine, as long as it's airtight and it's somewhere really cool, then it will be fine. Because some that I've made in the past, I've left for a day or two in the fridge. I actually left one on the windowsill just wrapped up and went back to it, and it was fine. I wouldn't, yeah, as long as it's somewhere cool, I think you'll be absolutely fine. Then you can just add to it. Because yeah, you might want to just do a little bit, leave it, come back to it the next day, you know, and just sort of treat it like that. But but yeah, you just need to be a little bit cautious with the air drying clay, because it does, you'll start to see it drying out in the edges, and yeah, that happens. But yeah, keeping it cool, keeping it in the fridge, and you can always just put a bit of water on your hands, just kind of wet it out a bit, like so. But,
So we're drawing towards the end of the workshop. We've got kind of 4 minutes left, and
okay,
we've had
brilliant.
quite a few questions come through about color application and kind of what paints you use. And could you show us kind of your finished piece and talk us through your palette and kind of what you use to achieve that?
Of course. So once you're kind of happy with your design, let it dry somewhere warm, and let it dry naturally. You don't have to, don't put it on a radiator or anything like that, because it might crack. But here are just some ones that I made. And then what I did is, so for instance, this one, once they're completely dry, oh, I should say before you do that, score the back. I don't know if you can see, that stops it bowing, and you can just lightly score it. So there we go. I coat the whole thing in white acrylic paint, and then these are just like cheap acrylic paints that I've used. So I've just kind of got this, I've kind of used a kind of gradient of like a dark green going into a lime green here. I've got kind of a bright purple, that's sort of the bluebell kind of colour. And I've got lots of white, and I've used sort of, I like having a lot of white and black to get some good contrast going. But that's just using, water-based acrylics, and just a kind of a little round brush. I've got one here actually, but and you can just, I think I've done about 2 layers on that to get the colours really, to get them to pop out. This one again, it's kind of it's supposed to be a Swift. I don't know if it looks like a Swift, but that's just an idea. You can, so that I've used a bit of bas relief around the Swift's body, and I painted it a different colour to, I guess, to kind of give the illusion of, I don't know, sort of a glow or something. And then this is just, again, I'm into gradients, so I've got sort of a dusky scene there. And again here, just gives you an idea. This is an oil beetle. You often see these around just about this time of year. I've seen quite a few on my walks. But again, I just kind of made it up as I went along. I went out and I saw some colours that I was like, oh, I want there to be primroses and bluebells. This is just a kind of, I guess it could be like a stick or something. And I've kind of scooped around the beetle here, and then I've just infilled that with a kind of turquoise colour. You can see this one has bowed a bit, and that's because I forgot to score it. So yeah, try and remember to do that. And then lastly, this one, this is just a really quick wash. So it's kind of, I used quite translucent acrylic paints, but something like watercolor watercolor, actually maybe gouache as well would give you this kind of effect. It's very chalky, but it's quite nice as well.
Would you need to add varnish to any of these, Flo?
You can do. Some people add like a PVA, like a watered down PVA, and I think you can get specific varnishes for using on air drying clay. I've never bothered, but that's just me. I think, yeah, the thing about air drying clay is you're not, chunkier you make it, the better generally, that you won't have any cracks or anything. I mean, I've got things that I made when I was about 10 still, but it's just not as permanent like using kiln dried clay. So you just have to be a little bit careful, but varnish does strengthen it. So it is, it can be a good idea, and it can also make it look nice and glossy if you're into that as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for leading such a wonderful workshop today, Flo, and
it's my pleasure,
for showing so many fabulous examples as well. I think, you know, everyone's going to be super inspired to continue the workshop, hopefully. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some amazing submissions to our gallery that we can share with you.
I'd love to see. Yeah, really love to see.
Thank you so much.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for everyone that's joined in today.
Yeah, big thank you to everyone that's joined us today. I'd like to just say once again to Flo, on behalf of Hospital Rooms, for such a wonderful workshop, and to everyone that's taken part in the workshop today. I hope you've all really enjoyed getting stuck in with the clay. Thank you so much to everyone that submitted a question and let us know where you've been joining us from today. It's been brilliant to have you all with us. It's time for me to launch a very quick poll, and that's just going to give us a quick indication of how you found the workshop today. That should be popping up on your screens now. So thank you to everyone answering. I'm just going to give that another 5 seconds or so to gather your answers. Thanks very much, everyone. Brilliant. Thank you very much for your submissions. So Richard, if you could please bring back our slideshow, that would be fantastic. Wonderful. Hopefully everyone can see that. So thank you once again to everyone that's joined us today. It's been a really wonderful workshop, and we hope you continue the great work by painting the tiles that you've created with us and Flo. If you're still here with us, I'd like to share a little bit about Hospital Rooms and how the workshop today has come about. We are a London-based art and mental health charity, and we transform inpatient mental health units with contemporary art. We're really happy that a lot of the units that we've worked with previously or hope to work with in future have joined us for the session today. We began the art school in response to COVID-19 lockdowns, when our work in person in units was put on hold. It's been hugely important for us to build a wonderful creative community where we can join together and feel part of something really special. You can find the library of our past workshops and all of the previous digital art school projects on our YouTube channel that you can watch back at any time. You'll find a whole range of workshops spanning from sketchbook painting, dog portrait painting, collage, and even storytelling. We'd really encourage you to have a look and subscribe. We're always uploading brand new videos, and by subscribing, you'll never miss a session. We also have a digital art school mailing list, which keeps you informed of upcoming workshops, materials you'll need, along with any relevant downloads and links to last week's video. You can sign up for that at hospital-rooms.com. You can also share your artworks with us from any of our workshops by uploading to our online gallery. We absolutely love to see them, and we do share your work with our artists as well. You can do it anonymously, or you can let us know your name and where you are. Finally, I'm really excited to let you know that the Digital Art School has been nominated for a Webby Award, also known as the Oscars of the Internet. If you love what we do, we'd really appreciate your votes. This win will enable us to increase our reach across wards and units in the country and keep the Digital Art School running. You can find Hospital Rooms Digital Art School under the Health and Wellness category on Webby. And voting closes at the end of the day today, so please everyone get your votes in for us. We'll be back next week on Thursday, the 13th of May with Liz Elton for an imaginative workshop where we'll be examining photographs of Google Earth to create mixed media artworks. We'd love to see you all for that, so please do register on our website. From me, finally, and everyone at Hospital Rooms, thank you all so much again for joining us today, and a huge thanks once again to Flo Brooks, our wonderful artist, for leading today's brilliant workshop. We'll see you all again at 2 p.m. next week, Thursday. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.